Commercial awareness part 46. So I'm having a bit of a lazy day today and I listened to the Financial Times briefing podcast. I listened to, as I'm sure everybody knows, the tariffs that were put on China and were potentially put on Canada and Mexico. So as part of President Trump's electoral campaign, there was a lot of talk about putting tariffs on countries, in particular on China. And the intention was to encourage the investment in manufacturing onshore, so in the US, and stop relying on global supply chains. The idea behind that was to shore up national security, make the US more attractive, get employers and businesses to invest in the States, and ensure that if America wanted to make anything, they were able to do it onshore. Now, we can talk a little bit on a separate TikTok about whether or not that makes sense, whether or not you agree with it, all of that kind of stuff. But in case anything comes up in any of your assessment centres, any of your conversations with people at work, people that you just talked to, just so that you understand the overarching premise of what happened with these tariffs. So China's one was pretty self-explanatory and also incredibly expected. He'd been talking about it for months on the campaign trail. And so the intention was to put, or not even the intention, he put 10% tariffs on China and it's likely that those will go up. What you may not know is that there's already a tariff regime that applies to Chinese goods that come into America. What the tariff that President Trump put on was across all products. So it didn't matter where they were coming from and there was no real exception from those products. Everything got a 10% additive tariff. Then you have, the Mexican tariffs and then the Canadian tariffs. What you may not know is that the trade in between the US, Canada, and Mexico is about 40% of trade. There's quite a lot that happens there. And they also signed this free trade agreement. I think it was in 1994, 1992. So for years, they have been able to free trade throughout the entirety of Canada, US, and Mexico. So that was super interesting. People were super surprised about that just because it was a random one. Ultimately, those tariffs haven't been implemented. There's a 30-day pause both on Canadian and Mexican tariffs. Mexico has decided to provide additional troops on the border between Mexico and the States. And Canada, they're working out, or at least discussing how it is that they take those tariffs or work out what the responses are to the proposed tariffs. So it's a super interesting time, and I think one of the things that you probably want to be thinking about is whether or not there are any other countries that are potentially on his radar. Now, it's unlikely that it will be the UK, but there has been talk about maybe Europe being on his radar, in particular working out in a way, a lot of it has been so that